Cassie is going on a wheeling adventure next weekend in Windrock, Tennessee. It's a women's group ride. Now, unfortunately, the LJ is not ready. There's still a lot of stuff we have to finish up from the swap and a lot of stuff that needs to be buttoned up and completely finished before she hits the trail in this rig. She's gonna take the Gladiator. It's a 10-hour drive. Taking the LJ would definitely be a risk. So the Gladiator, she's gonna drive out there to Tennessee, do her women's wheeling event. But unfortunately, if you've ever been to Windrock this time of year, you know it gets extremely muddy. All terrains plus mud, not a good idea for Windrock. So she asked me this morning to swap the wheels and tires over to the JT. Go get them balanced, and we have a lot of stuff to do in this video to get the JT and pretty much everything ready for Cassie to go wheel next weekend. I've always been a fan of these Mickey Thompsons on here. They're just the classic look. We painted them steelite gray. I put these on the Jeep a long time ago and I really, really like them. Anyways, let's go ahead and hit the road and get these things balanced. Mike knows a tire shop that balances big tires without any issue. So we're gonna head down, it's about 30 minutes away, get them balanced, come back here to the shop. I think I'm gonna have to start filming every time I drive into Mike's driveway because there are different rigs every time I come over here. But since we're here, we're gonna help Mike out with a few projects he's got going on. That skid plate that we are chopping up for the Project YJ, I'm gonna weld some of that up. Mike did some fabrication on it. Then after that, we're gonna have to drop the transfer case on the YJ. That way we can open the transfer case up and install a twin stick and then put it all back together and then finally go get these tires balanced on the JT. So I drove it home from Mike's. The balancing, they did an amazing job at it. This thing drove extremely smooth for 37-inch mud trains. These are the Atturo Trailblade Boss. Cassie was running them on her LJ and we swapped them over. Luckily the bolt pattern was the same because she has the JK axle swap, so they bolted right up. Now what I will say is that these things do feel a lot better under the Jeep. It's kind of weird because they are more aggressive, but I think the setup is lighter, probably due to the wheels, not the tires, because I would assume the tires, these tires would weigh more. But it felt really, really good. And you're gonna be excited. This thing's gonna do great at Windrock.
Yeah, these are gonna do better than the all-terrains because it's at Windrock. It's going to it will be muddy because it's have rained a ton.
Oh yeah, there's a ton of rain. So I think it's gonna rain next weekend too, or this weekend.
There. I think it's supposed to snow while I'm there too. So
oh yeah, it's gonna be interesting. These are gonna do a lot better. Plus the rocks, I think these are just gonna grab a little bit better too. Now the plan is to take this, hopefully wheeling up here in Crossbar before she goes. Do a little test run. We'll see. It might happen. It might not. But the next step is taking off this rooftop tent and rack setup. So I really, really like this design. You know, we have the Diamondback tent or the Diamondback bed cover, which
I love the Diamondback bed cover.
It's an amazing cover. You know, it's waterproof, lockable, all that stuff. It's hard shell, can hold a lot of weight.
Yeah. And
the rack options for this that lift up, there's none out there. I made the rack, put the tent on, loved it. We haven't used it as much as we thought we would, and I think that might change. So what we're gonna do is just take it off and build a low profile setup that we can remove on and off as we go. Because at this point in our lives with 2 kids, we know when we're gonna go on an adventure, well, we'll need the tent. So we're gonna go ahead and take it off today, pop it off, and get to working and hopefully wheeling soon.
Let's do it. Better.
I like it.
I like the rooftop tent look. However, for the daily, I definitely like just having the Diamondback cover.
For the daily, this is going to be a better setup. Not only do we cut down on weight, but it's a lot more aerodynamic. Plus, the Diamondback is a lot more useful again. The next issue is that in the past, I ran a small spacer in the rear to fix the drop, like kind of the, you know, the rear end sag from the rooftop tent and all of this metal, because that was probably close to close to 200 or more pounds on the rear end. So I added a spacer to level it out, but we're gonna have to pull it outside, but as I can tell now, it kind of is sitting tail high. So we're gonna pull it out, check that out. And we also have a skid plate for the JT. So we have a lot to do. Let's knock all this out, rearrange the garage or the shop.
Shop, barn, garage.
Shop, barn, garage. I think I've called it everything in between. Oh, that looks really, really good. On the JTs and the JLs, Important thing on these rear spacers in the front is this little doohickey there. That has to get aligned up in the frame, or you get a weird bow in your spring. Now the only bad thing about removing the spacer,
you
could drop your coil spring out.
Great idea. I say I leave it in then.
We decided last night that the safest thing to do is keep the spacers. While it is gonna still give us a little bit of a rake, it's a lot better than possibly having a loose coil spring. That's why it's important to check all of this stuff whenever you change something on your Jeep suspension-wise, or even something heavy. So in this case, when we had the spacer and the tint on there, the spring was nice and tight, but removing both the tint and the spring, it let that coil spring just have a little too much play, and I'm not a huge fan of that. Now earlier I mentioned that we are still installing yet another set of skid plates on a Jeep. So we've been on a skid plate roll here in the shop, and the big reason is that the area we moved to out here in Oklahoma, the trails, crossbar, pretty much all of the Midwest, very, very rocky. And skid plates, I could just go ahead and tell, these are gonna save our butts in the long run. Plus, with the JT, this long, low belly, it's gonna be getting rubbed up quite a lot. We can go ahead and tell just from the light off-roading that we've been doing, the skid plates are nice and scratched up already. So this Barnes kit's gonna give us a nice flat belly all the way across, protecting our engine, our oil pan, our 8-speed oil pan, or your transmission if you have a a manual transmission. But my big thing with this is a very expensive transmission. And while we do have some, bracing up here, if we hit this with a big rock, this can easily push our exhaust up, poke a hole in our trans pan, and then now we're leaking fluid on the trails and burn up our $3,000 transmission. So we are gonna cover all of this up. I prefer steel. I kind of explained it in the last video, but especially with the JT, this 5,000 pound rig, if we have aluminum here and we get up on a big rock, that aluminum's gonna deflect and bend, and it can possibly still push something up and poke our trans pan or anything else. So steel, this is 1/4 inch steel. The gas tank is 3/16. It's gonna be way beefy. We are gonna add quite a bit of weight to the JT, but if we're serious about wheeling this, I think we're gonna need it. The install was extremely straightforward, very easy to do. It probably took me 30 minutes, maybe an hour to get both of these skid plates on. Now I'm not done with the gas tank yet, but we're gonna do that later. Even if you didn't have a lift, if you're doing this in your driveway, it's not too bad of a job. It might just take you an hour, hour and a half. But honestly, like very, very well fit. The fitment is great. Putting this together, they all key in together. It's really nice. Instructions are good. And so we have the tcase skid, the engine and transmission skid. This is probably my most favorite part. As you can tell, it covers the transmission as well as the oil pan up here. So we have a little access plate. I wrote 3/16 or 5mm for the Allen size, so nobody ever strips that out. But the paint's still drying a little bit. It is looking really good. It's a very low profile skid plate, as you can tell, so we get plenty of ground clearance, and it's nice and smooth under here for the rocks to slide over. Speaking of that, as you can tell, there's that bolt. We're gonna have to replace that when we do the gas tank skid. But we have the Barnes bolt head protectors on there, so that way we won't have to deal with that in the future. The JT is pretty much ready to go wheeling. We're gonna test it out at Crossbar, and I know that I haven't showed you guys the JK exhaust yet. So let's check it out. That was pretty cool, wasn't it? I actually finished the Jeep exhaust a few days ago. Well, I wouldn't say finished, but it's to this point. So in the last video, we installed the Barnes tcase skid plate, routed the exhaust under it, and then I threw 2 MagnaFlow mufflers up there. I had to relocate my evap, did a really cheap DIY thing just to get it up here out of the way. Eventually we will come back, but for now, I'm happy with it. It is a super high clearance dual exhaust. As you can tell, nothing hangs down below the frame rails at all. So I'm happy with this exhaust. True duals, 2.5 inch. Not too many people do that on JKs because, I mean, it's not super hard to do, but it definitely is a little bit tight in there. Performance-wise, I think we're gonna be happy with it. We're gonna find out tomorrow on the trail to see how loud it is. It might just be a little bit overbearing. So a while ago, I installed these Warren locking hubs for the Dana 60. This is the side I broke down in Texas when we went wheeling in Mars Off-Road Park. But today I realized that no matter what position this Super Doobie locking hub is, it just doesn't unlock at all. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop the other Warren in this side, and then tomorrow morning we should be good to go wheeling. It's pretty late right now. I'm gonna knock that out, set the camera down. I'll see you guys in the morning. We're gonna hit the trails. Cassie's in the JT, aired down. We aired down this morning and we made it up here to the trail. How are the tires on the road?
Surprisingly, they weren't as loud as I thought they were going to be.
Yeah,
it was a
I mean,
good
they're definitely a little bit louder, but
it was a good ride.
it was good?
Yeah.
Nice. Crossbar, luckily, is only, what, an hour and 20 minutes from us?
Yep.
So we have a huge playground of a ton of trails, and there's a lot more trails being built. So let's head down the mountain. Cass, you want the camera or you're good?
I'm good. I'll take the next round.
Let's go. Easy peasy. Is Onion Patch gonna be an easy or hard trail?
I don't know, we're gonna find out.
I wish Mike was here. Huh, if only we had a really close friend that knew every trail in the park. Nah, I'm just kidding. He's off marking trails, which definitely needs to happen more here. So we're gonna continue this trail and try to find out where it goes. You think the JT's gonna be able to make it?
Boy, it'll be a tight one. This is the one I'm concerned about.
Yeah, I mean, good thing we have skids.
Oh, for sure. You're close. The JT would belly and then the tail is gonna drag on this rock. If your bumper hits, mine will definitely hit. That's your tail hitch.
Yeah, the JT's not going down this. I mean, it could. We could go down it.
Oh, we could, but
We got to pick up the kids from school, don't we?
yeah.
That's our school bus.
I'm not used to recording on my phone, but I think it's about time we have to break out the winch for this one. Not. All right, he's gonna give it another go. I was wrong. There we go.
Let's keep going, see what we can get into.
Dude, look at your face.
I need to,
Wait, come here now. We need a face shot for the people.
Is it nice and muddy? We just played around here on Onion Patch. That was the spot down there at the waterfalls that was super muddy. But this is a really cool spot. There's a nice ledge here that you can practice climbing on. But it's time to pick the kids up. They got getting out of school soon. We're gonna play around for a little bit longer, then head on home. Both rigs did amazing. We made it back without any issues at all, and Cassie's actually on her way to Windrock right now. She's probably a few hours away. The exhaust on the JK sounded amazing, so I didn't really go into detail too much about the type of like dual exhaust. You know, you have the true duals, which have like, let's use this plywood for example, an exhaust bank on 4 cylinders on a V8, and then in 4 cylinders all the way back. Now that's gonna kind of sound weird. Like imagine if we have that MagnaFlow on a Honda Civic, a 4-cylinder. That's gonna sound crappy, right? Then you pair up another Honda Civic right beside it and they're sitting there revving. That's what that's gonna sound like. But if we had an H pipe or an X pipe to it to interconnect them, it's gonna give it more of that V8 rumble. I added the H pipe, which adds a little more of like the low end sound and supposedly more low end torque. I'm not an exhaust guy, so I don't really know, but it sounds really good. I'm super stoked that we finally have skid plates on both the JT and the JK. Both of them really, really needed it. Now, the other thing I have not mentioned yet is that Cassie and I are going to Easter Jeep Safari. So if you're there, hit us up. We're gonna be there. We're gonna do a few Jeep trail rides and meet and greets. Unfortunately, the trail ride with Barnes4WD Drive and Matt's Offroad Recovery, that filled up within the first few hours. However, Cassie and I are still gonna be at the meet and greet with Matt's Offroad Recovery and Barnes4WD Drive. So I'll put a link in the video description so you guys can check all that info out if you want to swing by and say hi and hang out. And plus we'll be on a bunch of other trail rides as well. So that is it for this video pretty much. I think the next one is of course to start prepping the JK and the LJ for EJS, but I really need to organize the shop here so we can go into full like 2-rig work mode. The next video might be a full shop upgrade video where we're not really messing with the Jeeps, but we're gonna be in here upgrading the lights, maybe some insulation, building workbenches over here. We're gonna build a loft over in this corner. There's a ton of stuff to do in here, and I think we can make a cool video We gotta hang up the Jeep doors. The list goes on and on, guys. I'm gonna end this video. I'll see you guys soon. Thanks for watching. Please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment below on what you wanna see next, and I'll see you guys later.